Today's the 13th of November 2018. Of course, on the 12th of November 2018, we unfortunately lost Stan Lee. So we thought that we would do a tribute video to definitely someone that was a trailblazer in this particular space, in the comic book space. He's definitely the one person I would say within the industry, within the comic book industry, that definitely has been my inspiration for many, many, many years. And it's a sad loss to the comic book industry. Of course, all of us in this particular space can only hope to be like Stan Lee. So let me tell you a little bit about Stan Lee. He was born Stanley Martin Lieber on the 28th of December 1922. And then, of course, in 1939, he started working for Timely Comics as an assistant. He was the guy that got everyone their coffee, that filled the inkwells, because back in those days, the artists used to dip their fountain pens, or those very fancy pens, in ink, and then go ahead and then ink in the particular industry. In 1941, that is when he finally became a filler and was given the opportunity to do a little more. What is amazing about this is that Stan Lee single-handedly, along with a couple of other people that we've lost along the way, managed to work and live through the golden age of comics, the silver age of comics, and of course now in the modern age, where many of us are interacting with his creations through the movies. He had a massive contribution, and back in 1961, when we saw the silver age of comics being introduced, and I would argue, and there's probably a lot of people that would disagree with us on this one, but I would argue that he perhaps ushered in the actual true silver age of comics. Now, back in 1961, he was getting fed up with the comic book industry, because by then what had happened was that the popular superhero had started losing, by then it had already lost its momentum. And they were doing all kinds of things, from romance comics all the way through to comedy comics, basically stuff that would have appealed to young teenagers at the time. And he was getting sick and tired of that situation. His wife then told him, well, go ahead, since you are considering leaving the industry, the comic book industry that is, then do something, write something that you truly like, something that you would really be proud of. And that is when he introduced the Fantastic Four back in 1961, along with Jack Kirby. And we know that that changed the comic book industry forever. What he has given us thus far, what he has created and given us, is he co-created the Iron Man, just by way of interest, with his brother, Larry Lieber. Stan Lee was actually, as I mentioned earlier on, he was born as Stanley Martin Lieber, but changed his name to Stan Lee. That was the pseudonym that he used for writing. And we all got to know him as Stan Lee. In fact, he adopted it as his legal name eventually. He only intended to use it as a pseudonym for writing, but that is what we ended up knowing him as Stan Lee. The point of it all, though, is that he and his brother co-created the Iron Man. He himself created the Fantastic Four, along with Jack Kirby, created the Black Panther, he created Spider-Man, all of the big Marvel names, the legacy names that you can think of. That is what he gave us. Of course, throughout the many years, he started taking on various roles within Marvel Comics. Marvel having started off as Timely back in the day when he started in 1939, all the way through to what we have today as Marvel. He's been credited, of course, as you would know, as the executive producer for all the movies that we've been watching throughout the many, many years. He himself also headed up the company at one particular point. He was the editor, he was a writer, he was just phenomenal. He was a pure talent. Now, I wish I had more time to tell you a little more, all the way through to his very, very interesting writing style, where he would just basically bark orders or just write a couple of notes down for Jack Kirby, because the two of them were so in sync, and Jack would basically give us a 20-page spread, and then Stan Lee would return and fill out those text boxes. I mean, those are the amazing things that this guy brought to the industry, and he will be sorely missed. And we're truly sad at BB Comics to have lost such a legend. And all that we can do is try to fill that space, try to build on that legacy through our own comic book creations, and make sure that whether it be BB Comics or anything else, and the people within those spaces actually do a decent job and make the likes of Stan Lee proud.